My own brother betrayed me by getting my fiancée pregnant right before our wedding. Now my entire family expects me to forgive them, but I refused, cut ties and moved away to start a new life. This is going to be a long story, and as wild as it sounds, it's all true. I'll keep it as brief as possible. I'm in my 20s, and until a few months ago, I was engaged to my 5-year girlfriend, let's call her Sarah. My younger brother, Mike, is 29 and has always been the family's golden child. To truly understand the depth of this betrayal and how hard it hit me, you need to know a bit about my family and how we got here. Growing up, Mike was never in trouble in our parents' eyes, while I was constantly scolded for even the smallest mistakes. This wasn't your typical sibling rivalry or subtle favoritism, it was blatant and intense. If Mike broke something, I was blamed. If he got into a fight, I was the one punished. When we both earned straight A's, he'd get a new video game console while I only got a weak pat on the back and a reminder to keep it up. Our parents, Tom and Linda, always had excuses. Mike's younger, he needs extra attention, you're the older one, you should know better, or Mike's just more sensitive, we have to handle him with care. The constant barrage of impossible standards and gaslighting made me feel utterly worthless and unloved at home. As we got older, the bias became even more obvious. I earned a spot at a good college on a partial scholarship, and my achievement barely got a nod from my parents. In contrast, when Mike chose community college, they threw him a lavish celebration and even bought him a car. Forget that I had been biking 5 miles to my part-time job for years. I moved out as soon as I could to escape that toxic environment, supporting myself through college with 2 jobs and loans. Meanwhile, Mike dropped out after 1 semester, claiming college wasn't for him, and our parents backed him completely, praising his self-awareness and nonconformity. They even financed his series of failed business ventures in the following years. No matter how far I tried to distance myself, my family always found a way to reel me back in. Holiday dinners were a minefield of sneers and not-so-subtle digs. Still stuck in that entry-level job, they'd ask, while Mike was always planning his next entrepreneurial move. I was busy building a stable career, but they continued to praise Mike, who was slowly draining our parents' retirement savings. Even though I tried to keep a relationship with Mike because he was my brother, it was always one-sided. I'd reach out, and he'd either ignore me or twist our conversations into a competition. If I got promoted, suddenly he had a big break coming up. If I started dating someone, he'd be in a serious relationship before I knew it. I met Sarah while trying to reconnect with Mike. She was a friend of one of his brief girlfriends, and we hit it off right away. Sarah was everything I'd ever wanted: smart, funny, kind, and stunningly beautiful. For the first time, I felt truly appreciated. Naturally, my family wasn't thrilled. They made sarcastic comments about her being way out of my league and wondered what she saw in me, while Mike took a keen interest in every detail of our relationship. At the time, I was just glad someone cared about my life, though now I see the warning signs I ignored. After a year of dating, Sarah and I moved in together, and everything seemed perfect. We both had steady jobs, traveled, and talked about the future. I started to believe that I could finally have the life I'd always dreamed of: a stable career, a loving partner, and maybe even kids someday. On our 4th anniversary, I proposed during a simple dinner at home with a heartfelt speech, and she said yes. We planned a long engagement to carefully arrange our wedding. We weren't rushing, or so I thought. When we announced our engagement, my family's reactions were all over the place. My mom forced a smile and said, "Oh, how nice," in a tone that said the opposite, while my dad just grunted, "Good luck with that," before turning back to the TV. Mike, however, had the strangest response. He congratulated us, but there was something off about his smile, almost predatory. I dismissed it as my own insecurities at the time. The following year was a blur of wedding plans and job stress. Sarah and I both worked long hours to save for the wedding and a down payment on a house, so we didn't see each other as much as we used to. I figured it was just a rough patch. Every relationship has its ups and downs, right? Looking back, I should have noticed the signs. Sarah became distant, always glued to her phone and smiling at texts from people she quickly labeled business contacts. She started going out with her friends more often, coming home late with hints of wine and cologne, but I trusted her completely. I never even considered that she might be cheating, especially not with my own brother. About 4 months ago, Sarah's behavior shifted drastically. She was moody, irritable, and constantly nauseous. I even got a flicker of hope that she might be pregnant. We'd talked about having kids, though we hadn't tried yet. I began dreaming up nursery colors and baby names. Then one night, with tears streaming down her face, she sat me down and dropped the bomb. She was pregnant, but the baby wasn't mine. I was stunned. Even though our hectic schedules had kept us apart for a while, I never expected her to cheat on me. When I asked who the father was, she broke down and mumbled, "It's Mike." In that moment, my world shattered. Everything I believed in, everything I built my life around, crumbled instantly. I couldn't breathe or think, only a deep sense of betrayal and loss overwhelmed me. Sarah tried to explain, her words tumbling out between sobs. She said it all started at our engagement party when Mike approached her, telling her she was making a mistake by marrying me. He preyed on her insecurities, promising her everything he could offer that I supposedly couldn't. It wasn't just a one-time lapse, they had been carrying on for months. That night, I kicked Sarah out. I couldn't bear to see her or be in the same room with the woman who had deceived me so completely. She begged me to forgive her, saying it was just a mistake and that she loved me, but all I could think about was every lie and every moment she spent with my brother, all while wearing the ring I'd given her. After she left, I called Mike. I can't even remember what I said, it was all a blur of anger and pain. At first, he tried to brush it off, claiming it was a drunken mistake with no real meaning. But when I pressed him, he got defensive, saying, "Maybe if you had been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me." That was the last straw. I jumped in my car and drove to his apartment, determined to make him regret his words. I'm not even sure what I planned to do, but when I arrived, our parents were already there. Apparently, Mike had called them first, spinning a tale about how Sarah seduced him and how sorry he was, and, of course, they believed him, as always. My mom immediately started lecturing me about forgiveness and the importance of family, while my dad just stood there with his arms crossed, clearly disappointed in me but not in his golden boy, Mike. I tried to explain what really happened, but they wouldn't listen. They kept insisting I needed to forgive Mike and support Sarah through her pregnancy because, in their eyes, family comes first. I finally lost it. Years of pent-up anger and resentment spilled out as I told them exactly how I felt about their twisted priorities, how they'd always favored Mike over me and never stood by my side. I declared that Mike was no longer my brother, that in my eyes he was dead. I told my parents they could have the son they always wanted because they never truly had me. I stormed out, ignoring their cries and pleas, and drove for hours with no destination in mind, just a desperate need to escape everything. When I finally got home, I found dozens of missed calls and messages. Sarah begged for another chance, and Mike alternated between apologies and accusations, but most of the messages came from my parents, demanding that I grow up and make amends. I shut everyone out, skipping meals and sleep, calling out of work until I burned through all my vacation days. I couldn't face anyone or explain what had happened, so I just stayed in my apartment, replaying every moment of my relationship with Sarah and every encounter with Mike, desperate to figure out where things went wrong. Now, 3 months later, I've moved to a new apartment, changed my phone number, and started therapy to cope. But my family won't give up. Despite my attempts to cut ties, they keep intruding. They've even started showing up at my office, ambushing me in an effort to force a reconciliation. My mom confronted me in the parking lot, crying about how I was tearing our family apart, while my dad left harsh voicemails telling me to man up and forgive Mike. Mike himself has tried to reach out several times, but I've dodged him so far. Then, out of nowhere, long-lost aunts, uncles, and cousins are calling me, guilt-tripping me into forgiving Mike, as if what happened with Sarah was just a small mistake rather than something life-changing. Yesterday, Sarah messaged to say she's keeping the baby and plans to co-parent with Mike. And guess what? My parents are over the moon about becoming grandparents, conveniently forgetting all the hurtful comments they made when Sarah was with me. Her message was full of apologies and explanations. She even claimed that she and Mike discovered real love through this mess, and hoped that eventually we could all be friends for the child's sake. I'm at my wit's end. Part of me wants to cut everyone off completely and start fresh somewhere else, maybe move to another state, change my identity, and leave all this behind. But another part of me is so angry that I feel compelled to stay and fight, to show everyone just how twisted this situation really is. I'm lost right now, the betrayal has seeped into every part of my life. I can't bear being alone with my thoughts, and the idea of trusting anyone, of dating again, terrifies me. I've even lost friends who insist I should take the high road and reunite with my family, as if I'm wrong for refusing to play happy family with the people who hurt me the most. The thought of Sarah and Mike raising a child together, a child who should have been mine, feels like a constant stab in the gut. I know the baby is innocent, that it isn't to blame for its parents' lies and betrayals, but I can't bring myself to feel anything but anger when I think about it. Now my parents are talking about how I should be part of the child's life, even calling me an uncle. That idea makes me physically sick. How can I see this kid without thinking of my brother's betrayal? So here's my question, am I the idiot for refusing to forgive my brother and my ex-fiancée? Am I wrong to want to lose contact with my family over this? I feel like I'm drowning in betrayal and gaslighting, and I desperately need advice on how to move forward. I apologize for the long post. If you've read this far, thank you. Writing it all down has been oddly cathartic, even if I'm not sure whether I'm seeking validation, guidance, or just a chance to scream into the void. I also want to address a few common questions. First, yes, I've spoken with a lawyer about a restraining order against my family. It's in progress. Second, I'm not planning on having any contact with the baby. It's not the child's fault, but I can't risk losing my sanity by getting involved. Third, regarding work, I've already talked to HR. They're aware of the situation, have beefed up security at the front desk, and offered me more options to work from home, which I truly appreciate. Fourth, many have asked if I'm considering relocating to another city or state. That's definitely on my mind. My company has offices elsewhere, so a transfer might be possible as I weigh the pros and cons. Fifth, for those suggesting a DNA test, Sarah admitted to the affair, and the timeline fits, so I see no reason to doubt that the child is Mike's. Even if it turned out otherwise, I don't think I could ever look at that child without being reminded of everything. Sixth, I'm overwhelmed by how many people have experienced similar betrayals. It's painful to realize how common this is, yet strangely comforting to know I'm not alone. Seventh, someone asked if I'd consider legal action against Mike for alienation of affection. I looked into it, but it isn't recognized in my state, and frankly, I don't have the energy for another legal fight. Eighth, several have noted that Mike's behavior seems narcissistic. I've started reading about narcissistic personality disorder, and while much of it rings true, understanding it doesn't excuse his actions. Ninth, for those curious about Sarah's family, they're as shocked as you'd expect. They've cut off ties with her and reached out to offer support, which, though small, means a lot. And 10th, to anyone wondering if I'll ever consider having my own children, this whole ordeal has made me question whether I even want a family. I'm not ready to make any major decisions while I'm still processing everything. I'll keep you updated if anything major changes, but for now, my focus is on recovering and moving forward. Thank you again for all your help and advice. It means more than you know. Your encouragement gives me a lot to think about and has truly been a lifeline during this incredibly tough time. I might not be able to reply to every comment, but please know I read them all and they help me feel less alone. Hello again, just a quick update 2 weeks after my last post. It's been a wild ride. I never expected my post to go viral, and reading all your responses has been both upsetting and oddly reassuring. It's disturbing how common this kind of deception is. The past few weeks have been brutal. Remember when I mentioned I was working on a restraining order? That quickly turned into a major ordeal. My lawyer filed the paperwork, and we had a hearing scheduled. I assumed that, with all the evidence and the ongoing harassment, it would be straightforward, but I was wrong. My parents showed up in court with their own lawyer, a fancy guy in an expensive suit who probably charges more in a week than I do in a month. They tried to paint me as the crazy one, claiming I was tearing the family apart over what they called a simple misunderstanding, as if Mike had accidentally fallen for my fiancée. Fortunately, the judge wasn't fooled. She issued the restraining order against Mike and my parents, but not before my mother broke down in tears and my father glared at me as if I had committed a crime. The look on Mike's face, as we left the courthouse, he tried to approach me, only to be stopped by my lawyer reminding him of the new order, was enough to say it all. He scoffed, insisting that this wasn't over and that I couldn't hide behind a piece of paper forever. His words shook me, but at least I now have some legal protection. Work has been another nightmare. I mentioned before that my family had started showing up at my office, and things escalated last week. I was in a meeting with a client when my assistant alerted me that my mother was in the lobby causing a scene. Apparently, she had brought a photo album and was showing coworkers pictures of baby me and Mike, all while complaining about how close her boys used to be. I excused myself and headed to the lobby, where I found my mother surrounded by uneasy coworkers. She was in the middle of recounting a story about how Mike and I used to bathe together as toddlers when she saw me from a distance and rushed over, chatting about a baby shower, but I cut her off. I told her she needed to leave immediately or I'd call the police for trespassing and breaking the restraining order. Her face contorted as if I'd slapped her, but after everything I'd been through, I couldn't care less. Security escorted her out, and I spent the next hour trying to smooth things over with my boss and coworkers. Most of them understood, though I could tell some were curious about the drama I was bringing into the office. Still, nothing compared to the fallout from my fight with Mike. Last Saturday at the gym, I was working off my frustration on the punching bag, so absorbed in my training that I didn't notice someone coming until I heard a familiar voice. I turned to see Mike, smirking as if he hadn't just disregarded his restraining order. He was loud enough for everyone around to hear. I ordered him to leave immediately before I called the cops, but he only laughed and threatened to tell everyone how I'd threatened him and Sarah. That was the last straw. I swung and landed my first punch on his jaw. Mike staggered back, then lunged at me, and soon we were on the floor, trading blows like angry kids. There were no bystanders to intervene or to tell me to be the bigger person. I landed several solid hits before the gym staff finally separated us. Mike's nose was bleeding and my face was already swelling. We were both screaming as we struggled to break free. When the gym manager threatened to call the police, I grabbed my things and bolted. Still shaking from the adrenaline rush as I drove home, an unknown number called. Against my better judgment, I answered, only to hear Sarah shouting that I'd broken Mike's nose and that he might even need surgery. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. She was upset with me after everything that had happened. I apologized if I'd hurt her little boyfriend, the one she'd been secretly sleeping with for months, but then she started sobbing about her anxiety, insisting that the baby could sense her pain, and accusing me of being selfish. I ended the call and blocked her number. The aftermath of the brawl was intense. News spread like wildfire through our social circle, and my phone was bombarded with texts from friends and family, some offering support, others accusing me of assaulting my defenseless brother. Sarah's parents even reached out to express their backing for me and their disappointment in their daughter. It wasn't much comfort, but at this point I was grateful for any support. The restraining order now felt useless, as Mike had clearly shown he was willing to break it, leaving me worried about what he might do next. The legal fallout has been a nightmare. My lawyer called the day after the gym incident to say Mike had filed assault charges against me. I explained everything, how Mike had violated the order and provoked me, and my lawyer groaned, warning that fighting the charges would be tough since I threw the first punch. Now we're also in the process of pressing charges against Mike for breaking the order, and while my lawyer thinks this might help our case, nothing is guaranteed. I've had to provide police statements, show them my injuries, and justify defending myself against my own brother, which is utterly humiliating. Both Mike and I have now been banned from the gym for life. I can't really blame them, but it's a shame because the gym was one of the few places I could safely let out my frustration. Recently, my cousin Amy, someone I've always been close to, called me. Despite the pressure her family is putting on her for supporting me, she remains steadfast. She revealed that my parents have been spreading rumors, claiming I'm on the verge of a mental breakdown and insisting that Sarah and Mike's relationship only started after Sarah and I split. They say I'm just jealous and unable to let go. Although most of the family is skeptical about these claims, some seem to buy into them, and it's incredibly frustrating to hear false stories about me while I'm trying to recover. Work has been equally challenging. After the incident with my mother in the lobby and the argument with Mike that went viral on local social media, I can feel the tension among my coworkers. Earlier this week, my manager called me into his office. He started by saying he values me as an employee and understands I'm going through a tough time, but then he dropped the bombshell. He believes it would be best for me to take a leave of absence until things settle down. He called it a personal sabbatical, paid, of course. I wanted to argue that work is the only thing keeping me sane, but I knew the decision was final, so I thanked him and began packing up my desk. As I was leaving, I overheard two coworkers whispering about how my brother got my fiancée pregnant, and I couldn't help but slam my office door a bit harder than necessary, enjoying the momentary shock on their faces. I won't pretend that none of this has affected me. I've started taking long drives at night to escape the chaos, sometimes parking outside my old place, the one I once shared with Sarah, and wondering how my life became so tangled. Then, unexpectedly, I received support from Sarah's younger sister, Emma. She reached out on social media, apologizing for her sister's behavior and offering her own support. At first, I was suspicious, wondering if it was some kind of trick. But after talking with her, I realized that Emma is just as disgusted by Sarah's actions as I am. She filled me in on what's been happening in Sarah and Mike's lives. They've moved in together and act as if nothing happened, as if they hadn't wrecked so many lives just to be together. Emma claimed that Sarah has been trying to paint herself as the victim, crying to anyone who would listen about how she never meant to hurt anyone and insisting that she and Mike are soulmates who beat the odds. It makes my stomach churn, but I appreciate Emma keeping me in the loop. After all, knowledge is power, even when it's not the kind of truth you want. Social media, however, has been an absolute nightmare. I've always valued my privacy, but this whole ordeal has thrust me into an unwanted spotlight. Someone, probably one of Mike's friends, posted about our gym feud on a local Facebook page. The post didn't mention our names, but it described the events in enough detail for anyone who knows us to figure it out. The comments quickly turned into a battleground. Some defended me, saying Mike got what he deserved, while others called me unstable and claimed I needed to be locked up. One night, after too many beers, I made the mistake of reading through the comments. In a fit of rage, I hurled my phone across the room so hard that the screen cracked. Since then, I've deleted most of my social media profiles. I simply can't deal with the non-stop notifications and messages from people I haven't spoken to in years suddenly wanting every sordid detail of my life. With everything that's happened, I've come to realize I can't stay in this city any longer. There are too many painful memories and too many chances of running into Sarah, Mike, or even my own parents. I've started looking into internal transfers, and there's a promising opportunity in our Seattle office. It's not ideal. I've never been a huge fan of big cities, but at this point, I need a fresh start. It's been raining non-stop, and honestly, I'm so fed up with all this chaos that I'm considering a move to the moon just to escape it all. I haven't made any final decisions yet, but the idea of starting fresh, new city, new apartment, a completely new life where I'm not known as the guy whose brother betrayed his fiancée, is becoming more and more appealing. Meanwhile, my family's been unusually quiet ever since the restraining order was put in place, and I'm bracing myself for the moment when they come up with a new way to force themselves back into my life. Sarah's been shouting about her pregnancy from the rooftops, and Emma says she's been flooding social media with updates, ultrasound photos, belly shots, the whole deal, along with heartfelt messages about how blessed she and Mike are to begin their family. Every new detail feels like another sting, reopening wounds just as I start to think I'm healing. 2 weeks ago, I believed things couldn't get any worse, yet here I am, still angry, hurt, and exhausted from having to constantly justify myself. So, Reddit, consider this less of an update and more of a desperate shout into the void. I'm not sure if I'm looking for advice, sympathy, or a magic fix that prevents me from ever having to introduce Sarah to my brother. No matter what, I promise to keep you posted because your support reminds me there are still genuine people out there, even when betrayal and deceit seem to be all around. A week after that update, I'm here again, and this might just be my final post about this mess. First off, I want to thank everyone for your help and guidance during these rough times. Your words have been a lifeline when I needed it most. So much has happened in just 7 days, and I'm still trying to process it all. Let's start with the big news. I'm relocating. I took a risk and accepted a transfer to our Seattle office. It wasn't an easy decision, but after everything that's gone down, I knew I needed a fresh start. That decision hit me hard after a particularly rough day. I'd just come back from another meeting with my lawyer about Mike's assault allegations when I found a note in my mailbox from Sarah. I almost threw it away without a glance, but curiosity got the best of me. Inside was an ultrasound image paired with a handwritten letter detailing how overjoyed she and Mike were about their baby, and how she hoped I could find it in my heart to be happy for them, that the baby would be thrilled to have its uncle in its life. I lost my cool. Before I knew it, I'd unblocked Sarah and called her. She answered on the second ring, and I didn't hold back. I told her exactly what I felt about her, Mike, and their little family. I said it was insane to think I'd ever want anything to do with that kid and that she, Mike, and the baby could all just go to hell. It wasn't my finest moment, but I finally let out everything I'd been bottling up. That was the turning point. I realized I couldn't stay in the city any longer. Later that same night, I called my supervisor and told him I needed to transfer to Seattle immediately. He seemed relieved, probably worried about how all this drama might affect the company. He promised to fast-track the process, and by the next morning, it was official. I had 2 weeks to pack up and head across the nation. News of my move spread like wildfire among my family and friends. Unsurprisingly, my folks were furious. They showed up uninvited at my place, blatantly breaking the restraining order in an attempt to talk me out of it. My mom was in tears, accusing me of abandoning the family, while my dad ranted about how selfish and immature I was. I didn't engage, I just called the police to have them remove the intruders. As they left, my mom shouted that I'd regret this decision, that family was everything, and that I was throwing it all away. I shut the door on that argument and went back to packing. Mike, on the other hand, handled things differently. He didn't call me directly, probably because of the legal complications, but instead posted a lengthy message on social media complaining that some people just can't handle other people's happiness. He painted himself as a victim, insisting that he and Sarah were rising above the hate to focus on their new family. It was clear his message was aimed at me, and while it stung to see many people rallying behind him, I reminded myself that their opinions don't matter, they don't know the full story. Sarah's reaction came as the biggest shock of all. After our phone call, she reached out to her sister Emma, who had been keeping me updated on everything with Sarah and Mike. Apparently, my words had hit her harder than I expected. Emma told me that Sarah broke down, confessing that she now realized how wrong she and Mike had been and that she was terrified about what the future held. Meanwhile, my cousin Amy, bless her heart, offered to help me pack and filled me in on even more family drama. Amy mentioned that my aunt, my mom's sister, had a fierce argument with my mom, accusing her of always favoring Mike and sidelining me. My aunt even claimed that my parents were finally reaping the consequences of their years of favoritism. Honestly, it was a small relief to hear someone finally calling them out. On the legal side, my lawyer assured me that my move wouldn't impact the case. We're still pushing charges against Mike for breaking the restraining order and for the assault allegations he made against me. My lawyer is confident that the judge will see through Mike's arguments, especially given his past behavior with the restraining order. Moving across the nation should further prove that I'm not a threat, which might help drop some of his charges. I'm not sure if I'll post any more updates after this. Starting over means letting go of the past, and as much as I've appreciated this group's support, it's time for me to stop rehashing old pain and start building a new life. So here I am, heading to Seattle with a fresh start ahead. I'm taking a deep breath and stepping into a new chapter, leaving all the hurt behind. Thank you all for sticking with me through every twist and turn. If you enjoy our videos, please like, share, and subscribe, and if you haven't already, hit that notification bell so you won't miss more real-life stories as they unfold. Have a good day, and thanks for watching.